Chapter 700, Return. In the special dream, Amandina mentioned that the figure, known as the Underworld Taoist, had nodded at her. Armored Shadow, Chen Tu is suspected to be related to the Underworld Taoist. Franca is accumulating gold to create a golden body for Chen Tu to obtain more information. Lumian's mind raced with these thoughts. He turned to Amandina with a smile. You won't only encounter that figure during the dream festival. It's possible normally, Amandina asked, surprised. What kind of smarts do you have? Lumian inwardly criticized, shaking his head and smiling. What I mean is, it's not just in Tizimo where you can encounter that figure on a specific date. Amandina pondered for a few moments, before grasping the underlying meaning behind Louis Barry's words. Have you seen that figure elsewhere? I thought you couldn't see him and could only observe through me. Thankfully, you're not that dense. Lumian retrieved the golden mask from his traveler's bag. I could see after putting this on. Without waiting for Amandina's response, Lumian added with a smile, I did encounter that figure elsewhere. He used encounter, instead of meeting, to ensure his statement couldn't be more truthful. He wanted to say, I even know his name, but didn't feel like explaining to Amandina why he used the pronoun he to address the Underworld Taoist respectfully. Amandina's expression turned excited. Where? In Trier, Lumian replied honestly. This was the information he wanted the other party to know. Trier, Amandina felt a mix of captivation and fear. As an Intisian born and raised on the southern continent, she had heard countless rumors about the capital of joy and understood its vibrancy and prosperity. Trier had nearly become her dream paradise, but the furthest she had ventured was Port Pylos, never leaving Matani. If given the chance to visit Trier, fear was her initial reaction. After all, she was still a girl under 18. Lumian continued candidly, in the future, I know someone who might interact with that figure. I hope you can provide her with some assistance, the non-combat kind. To that end, I can take you to Trier and help you enter the area where the figure might appear. I can also provide some protection. How about it? Do you want to strike such a deal? Amandina hesitated, instinctively seeking an excuse. My parents won't allow me to leave Matani for Trier now. At the very least, I have to wait until I get a chance to attend university there. Lumian found it amusing and remarked, I'm not asking you to permanently relocate to Trier. You can go on Saturday and return on Sunday. Amandina was taken aback. She had imagined a long-distance voyage, hiking through mountains and wading across rivers, forever bidding farewell to her home. Lumian arched an eyebrow. It's not like I haven't teleported you in the dream before. But isn't that just a small area? Amandina's eyes lit up. Can you really teleport directly from Matani to Trier? Lumian nodded slightly. Yes, I might need to make a transit once or twice along the way, but it will still allow you to reach Trier quickly. Quickly, Amandina's interest was piqued. She yearned to experience such wonders. However, she didn't make a decision immediately. Lumian didn't rush her. No need to decide right away. Meeting that figure again is actually quite dangerous. You should first truly come into contact with Matani's mysticism circle and learn the basics about Beyonders from Ria. Only then should you consider accepting this deal. It might take 3 months, half a year, or even a year. Amandina breathed a sigh of relief. Understood. Curious, she asked, is your friend a woman? He had used the pronoun she. In our hearts and minds, she has always been one. As for how she identifies, sometimes yes, sometimes no, Lumian inwardly criticized Franca and nodded slightly. Yes. Amandina asked excitedly, your lover? Lumian chuckled. Of course not, why do you always fixate on such matters? As Lumian spoke, he retrieved a post-it note and fountain pen from his traveler's bag. He scribbled a few lines and handed them to Amandina. Amandina took it and carefully read it under the cathedral's candlelight. A creature wandering above the world, the penitent who awakens from the flames of pain, a messenger that belongs solely to Lumian Lee. What's this? Amandina was bewildered. My messenger. Set up a ritual once you've made up your mind. Use this incantation to summon my messenger and inform me of your decision, Lumian explained simply. Amandina grew increasingly perplexed. What ritual, what summoning? This isn't a conventional messenger. Lumion raised his eyebrows again. Have you never heard of a messenger in the mysticism domain? Don't you know about summoning rituals? Amandina smiled sheepishly and said, I came into contact with superpowers last year and gathered some information about the pathways of the divine through Robert and a few mysticism enthusiasts. I know about rituals, but I'm not sure about the details. Then her eyes lit up. You'll teach me, won't you? Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to summon your messenger. Also, is your real name not Louis Barry, but Lumion Lee? Why you took a pen and paper from that coin bag? You also took your previous items from there. What kind of mystical item is this? Lumion couldn't help but glance up at the golden spherical dome. The following morning, Lumion left the Brieux Motel with Ludwig and Lugano. They passed through streets still strewn with ruins and arrived at Bunia's cafe. The owner, Bunia, maintained his usual shyness and politely inquired about their needs. Lumion ordered 3 cups of Kosa coffee and 3 servings of Matani's specialty breakfast, akapa. Akapa was made from rice, chicken, eggs, potatoes, and common local spices wrapped in leaves from the akapa trees. It was filling and fragrant, and one couldn't stop eating once they started. Lumion gazed at the spread of akapa, picked up his cutlery, and scooped a spoonful into his mouth. The fragrance of the leaves, the salted egg yolk, the weightiness of the rice, the tenderness of the chicken, the softness of the potatoes, and the strange rich aroma combined to create a unique texture. As Lumion ate, he casually surveyed the pedestrians and cafe patrons on the street. After the sorrow and fear of the previous night, they had become gentle again, no longer revealing excessive emotions. When they spoke to others, they always had a faint smile on their faces. After Ludwig finished his second meal of the morning, Lumion found a secluded corner, changed into winter clothes, and disappeared from Tizimo with him and Lugano. This time, Lumion refrained from teleporting directly to Franca, as Lugano, Ludwig, and the 2 demonesses were unfamiliar with each other. Lumion chose the rarely used entrance to underground Trier in Quartier de la Cathédrale commemorative. The trio swiftly outlined themselves on the steel steps. Upon returning to the surface, Lumion spotted a few college students carrying carbide lamps and lanterns. They jested as they passed by the trio and entered underground Trier. As he turned onto the nearest main street, the first thing Lumion saw was a scantily clad man in chains. He crawled slowly along the street in a dog-like manner. If anyone dared to glance at him, he would glare back and bark twice. In the next moment, the street artists on the corner played a rhythmic melody. Passers-by more or less danced with relaxed and satisfied smiles on their faces. The man acting as a dog and trembling in the cold wind also raised his hind leg. This was very different from the streets in the market district. Quartier de la Cathédrale commemorative was renowned for its numerous universities. Lumion averted his gaze from the pedestrian smiles and led Lugano and Ludwig to Anthony's nearby rented house. It was on the 4th floor, near the end of the corridor. Knock, knock, knock. Lumion knocked on the door without hesitation. Soon he saw Anthony, who was dressed differently from before. In a white shirt, light gray cashmere sweater, black tweed coat, dark red bow tie, gold-rimmed glasses, and a light yellow wig, his beard was cleanly shaven, and his face was no longer greasy. The black grime in his pores was gone. He had the air of a successful member of high society. Are you in a relationship? Lumion jested. Anthony replied with a smile. I'm attending a banquet hosted by the Trier Psychiatrist Guild today. This was a necessary prerequisite for completing Madame Justice's mission. Lumion entered the room and asked casually, have you obtained a psychiatrist license? Anthony nodded. I acquired a genuine identity and educational background. During the interview, I successfully convinced the examiner. A genuine identity, where's its original owner? Lumion asked thoughtfully. Anthony glanced at Lugano and Ludwig, but didn't directly answer Lumion's question. What can I do for you? Lumion understood Anthony's meaning and temporarily abandoned the question. He briefly mentioned the Dream Festival's situation and the after-effects of Lugano losing his arm in the dream. He didn't mention how Lugano had lost his arm. Anthony listened attentively and looked at Lugano. Such hysteria is easily resolved. Do you need a faster solution, or do you want it to be slower and gentler? Lugano replied without hesitation, the faster one. He had lost control of his right forearm. Anthony's gaze shifted to Lugano's left side, furrowing his brow. Lugano subconsciously turned to his left and followed suit. At that moment, Anthony produced a dagger from nowhere and thrust it at Lugano's right forearm. Lugano swiftly retracted his hand and blurted out, "What are you doing?" Anthony sheathed his dagger and replied calmly, "The treatment is over." Huh? Lugano looked at his right hand in confusion and realized that it had retracted to his chest without being impeded. Lumion chuckled and said to Lugano, "Keep an eye on Ludwig. Remember to prepare food for him." Without waiting for Lugano's response, Lumion turned to Anthony. "Let's go find Franca and Jenna now." Anthony glanced at Lumion and adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses he was unaccustomed to. "All right,